All right, next topic today. This one right down our alley. Baseball. MLB comes out and they announce no Hall of Famers for this year. Something that's kind of shocking, surprising, maybe. But the headliner obviously comes again. Bonds, Schilling, their last year on the ballot, right?
Schilling
had one
next
more.
year. He took himself out of next year.
Took himself out. So Bonds, Schilling, at least for now, unless something happens.
Clemens missed out
Clemens,
as well.
yeah. No Hall of Fame for them. So my thoughts. Curt Schilling, obviously, these voters have been so strict with their policy and kind of not budging for anything with the steroid era, everything else. Curt Schilling's a guy that had a great career, and when it comes to it, it's hard to really rule on it because the whole steroid era is this big controversy. But then what are we gonna do? We're gonna look at these Astros scandals,
Right.
and all this other stuff, spying, the trash can stuff, the Wire. What are we gonna do? Look at that and say,
Jose Altuve isn't a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Jose,
It doesn't matter.
Jose
Yeah.
Altuve is definitely going to get into the Hall of Fame. I think.
Yeah, and I think there's guys that are. I mean, Verlander. Like, what? You're not
going
put
to let Justin
Verlander in?
Verlander?
No,
No,
that
it's
doesn't make
ridiculous.
sense. So I mean, and I think that is worse than what happened with the steroid era. Bonds has come out and said, obviously, not many people want to believe him, but Bonds has come out and said, I was doing my own thing, and then I'm seeing these guys, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, they're hitting moonshots, just
Players
bombs
who were
after
nowhere
bombs.
close to as
Yes,
good as him.
exactly. Just hitting bombs, and they're getting all of the recognition, all of the news, all of the media, everything, which leads to bigger contracts, bigger fan bases, jersey sales, all that stuff. And if you're here playing the game by the rules like Bonds was, and you see that happening, and you know you're better than these guys, I don't blame them for being like, all right, well, they're not getting caught, they're not getting in trouble. I want to do what they're on. I want the juice. Like, it's one of those things. So, in my opinion, Curt Schilling, I'm not too big on either side. I think he does belong in the Hall of Fame. But here's where I get really serious. Bonds, I think that Bonds not being in the Hall of Fame is the biggest crime baseball's ever committed outside of
Pete Rose.
Rose and the Black Sox scandal. Barry Bonds is, in my opinion, the greatest MLB player of all time. Trout might pass that.
Yeah,
I think he will
Trout's
pass
gonna
that.
pass that, yeah.
Just give him a couple more years. He'll pass that. Maybe, hopefully, a World Series eventually. That'll help his case a ton. Babe Ruth, obviously, but Barry
Rose.
Bonds. Yeah, Pete Rose, obviously. Two of the four that we were just mentioning aren't in the Hall of Fame, and one of them's even banned. So, Barry Bonds, I think, but you look at him before the steroids. He was a fast, stole bases, hit bombs,
Great fielder,
great average. Like, this guy was a great player before steroids. Takes steroids and is just like a my player, like, create a character. Like, this guy was off like the charts. Like, you can't even say anything besides his greatness was just unmatched. Him not being in the Hall of Fame really gets me riled up. I don't know how you could do it. I don't know how in his final year you could just not be like, okay, like, we'll give it to him. Like, the final year, people would recognize that. They would be like, okay, it's his final year. They just let him in. It wasn't a first year automatic bid. But to not have him in at all is just disgraceful.
And what did he get? Like 63% of votes?
I think you needed
I
something.
thought it was 61% he got.
He got, like,
Schilling got
much lower.
71%.
Schilling got, okay, yeah. Yeah.
Like Bonds, like my thing with Bonds has always been, okay, yeah, he takes steroids, but there's still the element of what I think the hardest thing to do in all of sports is to be able to hit a baseball.
Yeah.
And he did that exceptionally well. He just took something to make the baseballs go further.
Yeah.
What
do you think about it?
You're right, But other than that, still phenomenal, one of the best baseball players of all time.
The way I look at Barry Bonds is pre-steroids, like pre-accusations. This guy was a Hall of Famer.
Yes, exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
From 1986 to 1998, when everyone thought he was on the juice, he won 3 MVPs. He was in the top 5 voting for MVP 5 times. He won 8 Gold Gloves, 7 Silver Sluggers, and he made 8 All-Star games.
yeah,
This guy might have been the greatest baseball player of all time pre-steroids.
Yeah, like
It makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make sense.
And then you have guys like Mike Piazza, who people accuse of doing the juice, all the time, and he got 99% of the votes to get in.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is it's the egos of these voters. It's all about ego. They don't want him in. They don't want to accept it.
Well,
they don't want to.
It's also because Barry Bonds was a jerk to media members.
Obviously, like there's so much that goes into it, but like I think doing this is just something that, again, the reason why baseball fails to reach the levels that NFL is at now, it's because they don't grow as a organization, and it's the whole issue with the taunting after home runs, bat flips, the staring down pitchers, all that stuff. And if you're going into a new generation, a media generation, internet, you gotta kind of adjust. And the fact that the MLB still doesn't want to do that and still doesn't want to let in a guy like Barry Bonds, Curt Schilling, I mean, these guys are, and I always come back to it. When you're telling whether or not a player could be a Hall of Famer, it always comes back to, can you tell the story of the MLB, NFL, NBA, whatever it is, without saying their name? And no, you cannot for both of these guys.
And to touch on that part of it, Curt Schilling, he won 11-2 in the postseason, a 2.26 ERA, won 3 World Series, won a World Series MVP, and for his second World Series, he helped push the Boston Red Sox over the top to break the curse of the Great Bambino.
Yeah.
How is this guy not a Hall of Famer?
That's like one of the biggest stories about
That might be the
MLB.
biggest stories in sports history.
And you can't snub him. Like, and it shows. He's just so fed up. I'm not, what he said, I'm not going on the ballot next year. Like, I don't even, like, these guys, it's disgraceful. Obviously, we could touch on Pete Rose a little bit, another episode.
It's just so telling.
It's so telling on the egos of these voters and on the ego of the MLB as a whole to not want to grow and not adjust and just stay complacent to America's pastime. But yeah, like if you stay like this, it's going to be the pastime because nobody's going to be watching it. And
well, it's also the fact that the MLB doesn't want people to watch it unless they pay for it. The MLB, the NFL just did it a few years ago. The NBA's done it for years. It was one of Adam Silver's best ideas. The MLB doesn't monetize their content. They do monetize their content. That's the problem.
Yeah, and they control everything that's out there.
Right.
You post a clip of a thing, you can't do it anymore. These teams, the Red Sox, when they hit a home run, half the time they don't even post a clip of the home run. They post a clip of David Ortiz or whoever it was going up there and like flexing on like a graphic, and it has Ortiz home run. Like, how can you, like, NBA, some guy takes a charge, you see it all over Twitter. Right. Like, you have to do that. It grows the game. And I think this is something we could touch on definitely in another episode because we're all big baseball fans, and this stuff gets us riled up. But, like I said, Bonds, Schilling, these guys should be in the MLB Hall of Fame.
Even a guy like Roger Clemens.
Even Clemens, yeah.
I was looking at Clemens' stuff today, too. I didn't realize he played from 1984 to 2009?
Yeah. Somewhere around there, yeah.
Well, part of the reason with him, I do kind of understand his because he like got kind of bad and then took steroids to like rejuvenate his career.
It's just a second
So
peak.
I kind of understand him, but still, I think pre-steroids, the guy was a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think these voters are going to regret it in the future when they're seeing guys like Altuve and Verlander go in after all these scandals.